Alright everyone, welcome back to Cody's Lab. So one thing that people mention in the comments of my videos whenever I'm working out at the ranch and I show like a wide angle shot is the lack of trees. You know, we've got hundreds of acres and maybe a couple dozen trees. And they're mostly just the scrubby little junipers. And that didn't used to be the case. There used to be giant Douglas fir and pinyon pine and of course loads of junipers all over. But just over the years, fires and people cutting down trees for firewood has removed most of the trees. I think the last big Douglas fir burned in 1998. Growing up at the ranch, I would hear family members talking about all the trees that are now gone, and also the effects of having them missing. You see, without the trees, the wind is able to blow more effectively. Even though it's a mountainous area, without the trees, the mountains are now smooth and the wind just runs right across them. With the trees there, it was less windy. Also, snow would accumulate like down between the trees, and the shade produced by the trees would keep the snowpack around for longer. So the ground would stay wet longer into the spring, because the snow would just be melting slowly rather than all melt in just a couple of days as soon as the sun hit. Also, when we do get like big storms, like we don't usually get a lot of rain, but sometimes we'll get like 6 inches of rain in like a few hours. And when that happens, usually you've got boulders the size of cows rolling down the hill in the torrent of water. Back with the trees would stop that and there wouldn't be giant flash floods. You might occasionally get a trickle going through, but it'd usually not be carrying giant boulders. And so I want to bring the trees back. This is going to be a huge project. It's going to be thousands of trees, but I think my goal for this year is to kind of start small. We'll only do about 100 trees, and then maybe next year I'll ramp up and plant 1,000 trees, you know, etc. If, say, I go plant 100 trees and I do something wrong and most of them die, then I can learn my lesson and not have a huge financial loss while doing it. Now, where to acquire the trees? I think I'll just go off onto my mineral claims, you know, areas around the ranch that still have trees. I think I am allowed to take trees, but at any rate, I'm going to be taking trees that are like growing up underneath of other trees that just are not going to grow there, and transplant them. If they die, they would have died anyway. Basically, almost just pull them out of the ground and then put them in pots, see if I can get them to root a little bit. I'll plant them actually at the ranch, probably just before the snow flies, you know, just before the wettest part of the year, so that they can, you know, get the roots down and establish before the next summer heat hits. So let's go head off into the hills and grab some trees. Alright, so I've hiked up into an area that hasn't burned, at least not recently, and got this tree here, Rocky Mountain juniper, which is the same type of tree that is actually most prevalent at the ranch. You can see there's some baby trees coming up underneath of it. I'm going to dig some of these up and transplant them. Kind of digging around the tree like this to bust off the roots, and then hit in underneath. Do the same. Okay, hopefully the camera's not shaking too much. I break that off. Hopefully we got enough dirt on those roots. Alright, here's my bucket of trees. Go put them in some pots now. Make sure I give them a drink. The soil they were growing in was very dry, so I'm worried that they're drying out. Should have brought some water with me. Oh well, let's get them down to the house quickly. I'm just going to transfer them into these little cardboard pots. You know, pack some dirt around it. So you can see all of the trees that I've dug up and potted over the last little while. And all of these are going to get planted out at the ranch just after the snow starts flying. You can see I've got the Douglas fir, juniper, some pinyon pines. box elder. I've also got a pineapple back there, but that's not related. So I'm currently at the ranch. You can see there's my top bar beehive over there. And I've carried all the junipers over in this plastic tote. And I'm going to plant one right here. And a few along those rocks. And other places where I think they'll both get a little extra water and also be protected from fire. All right. Just dig a little hole. The ground's very rocky. Now, these junipers don't seem to mind. This hillside used to be completely covered with them. After I get these planted, what I'm going to have to do is every year come by and clear away the grass and brush away from the trees, even prune the tree, so it's less likely to burn if a fire rips through here. I can also put these rocks kind of around the tree to keep the grass from growing right up next to it. Okay, the hole should be big enough. Let's pull that piece of grass out of the pot. Set that down in there. You notice I'm planting it just a little bit lower than ground level. That way snow and water accumulates on the tree. And by the time the ground level's up, the tree will be grown up a little bit. So there's the tree. And here's the little tag I'll be using to mark it. So you can see Utah Juniper 2018. I'm naming it after Jeremy, one of my patrons. Let's just bang that into the ground a little bit. Now, the stick will rot away eventually, and if I haven't done something else with the tag by then, at least you'll be able to find it with a metal detector. So I've come over to the other side of the mountain. We're now on the north-facing slope. You can see I'm now planting these Douglas fir trees. You might also be able to tell that the style of tag has changed slightly. That's because Canyon actually did these for me. I think from now on I'm going to have her do all of them. Her handwriting's substantially better. I may replace the tags if I find a better method, and certainly if the tree dies, then what my plan is to take the tag, I'll pull it off the stick, melt it down, and then do another one. They're pretty cheap. So here's a little bit of aerial footage that my dad took using the drone. He flew over and found me. You can see that it's getting kind of dark. It took way longer to plant the trees than I was expecting. In fact, I planted until it was too dark to see. Unfortunately, I didn't get all the trees planted, but I'll plant the rest here pretty soon. I would like to make it clear that the names on the trees are just literally the name of the tree. It's mostly for my reference. Otherwise, I would have just given them each a random number. You can see me taking a photo of the tree along with its GPS coordinates. Again, this is just so I can keep track of everything. I won't release the GPS coordinates, but I'll post all the photos of the trees that I did plant this weekend on the end of this video. So, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.